from the east, land on the west. We gon' make that shit pop, bust it for a check. Call the plays, link the squad, we gon' make it cash. Yeah, nobody can press me but the press. Nobody can check me when it's chest. Not for real. They coming at my neck like Gillette. I'm on the catch, that's the butterfly effect, yeah.
Alright, back again. This time we got a little vibe with Travis Scott. As usual, I'm just gonna go in, break down the sample, break down the beat, and along the way I'm just gonna give you a ton of tips. So let's get into it. Now, before we even start, I want to talk about something that's extremely important, especially when you're making these type of beats, and that is sound selection. So a lot of times people just say, work on your sound selection, you need better sound selection, but nobody actually, explains what that means. So whenever I start a beat or a sample, I have this checklist of 3 things that I always ask myself first before I even begin with anything. The first question, which always pops in my head and I just make sure to think about it, is what purpose does the sound serve? So whenever you're creating something, every single sound has to have a purpose. Sounds can have multiple purposes, but things that I usually check off is this sound filling up a specific frequency range, for example? Or is it adding texture? Or is it adding more ambience? Or is it creating more movement in my chords or the melody? So I think about the purpose of the sound and why I'm adding this sound in the first place. Now the second thing I always make sure to think about is how does the sound sonically fit together with the rest of my instruments. So I've talked about this in a lot of my previous videos, but say if you have live instruments, it's usually the better idea to just use even more live instruments when layering samples. Just create the sound, which is live instruments. You have a guitar, you add a bass guitar, you add a piano, you add some strings, and you don't even have to think about sound selection. Or you have a synth bass, then you add a synth lead, then you add some arps or whatever, and you just have a synth based sound. These are a type of sounds which fit together sonically, and you don't even have to think about it too much. Now the third thing, which is the most important part, which I always make sure to, just sit down and think when I'm making a sample, is what is the point? What is the goal? What are we trying to create? Like, what type of emotion are we trying to convey? What type of place are we trying to put the listener into? Like, what type of room? And I feel like that's where most people get it wrong. So, producing isn't necessarily just cooking up and clicking random ass shit until you get something that sounds half decent. I like to think about producing as you just create this ambience where you can just put someone in, and whenever they put on the headphones, they can just take out a certain emotion out of this, or just be transported into a certain place. And I feel like, for example, that's why Travis Scott's music is so good and he's so successful, because whenever you listen to his stuff, if it's energetic, it has a lot of emotion, it makes you rage, it just gives you this energy. And the exact way they do it is, again, if you want a harsh rage synth, just aggressive sound, what they do is they just take synths, they make them harsh because, harsher sounds, they sound more aggressive, and then they combine it with even more synth sounds. Then they just build up this whole canvas of, aggressive, dark, energetic sounds. So yeah, I just keep saying this, but less really is more, because you just want to focus on the vibe that you're trying to create and the sound you want to use to create that sound. So yeah, enough yapping, let me just go in the FOP and break this one down for you guys. So I went ahead, I opened my Illusions analog wide bank, and I used this One Note Wonder preset, which is exactly that. Like, you can just hold one note and it's gonna give you a lot of ambience and a lot of atmosphere. So I just laid down this one note. Now after that, I exported the sound, I chopped it up into 2 parts, and I pitched down the second part 5 semitones. So basically I created a 1-5 chord progression, C sharp minor, and then G sharp minor. After that, I went ahead and added these effects. This preset has bass, I took that out. Then I added this auto chroma plugin with the Wash Chorus preset. I added another EQ, taking out the high end and the low end. Stereo shaper, which just spreads out the sound. After that, I added this reverb and pancake. So when you put it together, this is how it sounds now. Now after that, you know, I wanted to add something that's even more eerie. So for this, I open up WAVs, I use this felt cassette preset, and I lay down this pattern. Now, as I set the chord progression to 1-5. We have a 1 chord and then we have a 5 chord. And in between the chords, I'm just using notes which are from the chord itself. And this one note which creates tension because it's a half step, and this makes the sound even more dark. Once I lay down this chord, I just took it here, I pitched it down 5. That's how the whole chord progression was built. Now when it comes to effects, I have this EQ, then I have this delay tape, then I added delay tape again, but this time I'm using it as reverb. After that I added RC20 to add this wobble vintage effect, and then we have some additional EQ. So when you play the two sounds together, that's how they sound. Now moving on, I needed a sound which is gonna fill out the low end. So since we're doing something for Travis Scott, it had to be a synth bass. So I went ahead, I sound designed this on my analog synth, and I played this pattern. Once again, I'm just using the root notes of the chord progression, and then I have this G which I chopped up and pitched up, and this D. As far as effects go, I'm just taking out the high end since it's a synth bass and it has a lot of harsh frequencies, and then I'm just boosting the low end to make it more punchy. So far we have this. We have something that's real dark, but it still needs something that's gonna accent the melody. So I went ahead, I added the synth ARP, I chopped it up, and for the second part, once again I pitched it down 5 semitones to match the chord progression, and this is how it sounds without any effects. Reverb, EQ to take out the high end and the low end, and pancake to give it movement inside the sample. So my goal basically was to make it more ambient and not in your face. So this is how the sample sounds with all of its elements now. So as you can see, only 4 elements, but we have a whole atmosphere built up and it has a certain dark vibe. Now moving on to the drums, this is how they sound on their own. So here's standard stuff. We have 5 elements, a kick, hi-hat, open hat, clap, and a snare. Since we have a BPM of 160 and the beat is moving very fast, one thing that I like to do with my beats is the higher the BPM, the more space I leave in the drums. 2-step hi-hats, then I have this clap, and then I have the snare. And finally, just open hats to give it more bounce. So when you put it all together with the beat, this is how it sounds. So yeah, very simple stuff, aggressive high energy drums without taking out space for the artist. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys learned something, I hope you've been taking notes, and catch you in the next video.